at the end. So with that, I'll give you Yarmo.
You had mentioned that the wins and losses maybe from this season wouldn't really be factored into the decision evaluation of Brad Larsen. I guess I'm wondering, with I think it's 563 man games lost, a franchise record, how tough was it to come to the decision that you guys reached, and was it based off of mostly just this season, or was it kind of like a big picture thing through the 2 years?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify that I said that the evaluation shouldn't be just about wins and losses. It's obvious what we went through with the injuries, and it's an unfortunate situation for all of us. And we do our evaluation every day here. We watch every practice. We watch closely, try to watch closely what's going on in the locker room, and we're communicating with the coaches every day, and that's how we do our evaluations on what goes on with our team, and especially the direction we want to take with our team. And we came to the conclusion that this was absolutely a necessary change that we needed to make, and that's why we're here today.
Was it difficult?
It's always difficult. You're dealing with people that you've gotten to know very well. We have a lot of respect for Brad Larsen and many legacy as people, and there's a personal relationship there too, and that makes it always hard.
Yarmo, what was the criteria that you used? Why was this move necessary? What did you see that you didn't like?
I'm not going to dissect the strengths and weaknesses of our coaches. I got to let go today out of respect for them. But as I said, it was a lot of things that factored in that made us come to this conclusion, and it was absolutely necessary to make these moves.
Do you feel like from the time that you hired Larsen 2 years ago, has your team changed? As what this team looks like and what kind of coach it needs, has that changed? Or was there something in the coaching specifically you didn't like? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think the team is evolving. Obviously, young guys are getting a little bit older, and that's part of the process that we knew that it's going to take a little bit of time here to nourish the talent that we have and get to the next level. I think we, as I mentioned once before, that maybe we got a little bit ahead of ourselves last year with the success that we had. We knew this was going to take time if we want to do it the right way. Although all those things factor in, but like I said, we evaluate the day-to-day stuff every day here, and that brought us to this conclusion.
The way that the season ended was not a surprise. You probably could have seen this coming for a while now. Have you started in on finding your new coach? Do you have somebody in mind? Is it the same kind of search you did a couple of years ago when you landed on Larsen?
Well, out of respect for the coach that's still in place, we don't start any searches. They have a tendency of leaking and would create a bad situation if we were to do that. So we have not, but we will start evaluating that situation immediately with the deep look at all the best candidates that may be available, and give consideration to the staff that we have here. The rest of the coaches are in place. They've done a good job, and we evaluate this whole situation as we move forward here, and that starts today.
Can you speak? So you've retained Pascal and Steve. Do you want them to be part of the next coaching staff, or will that be the next coach's imperative to decide that if they're not, one of them isn't the guy?
Well, I think that needs to be a discussion with when the choice comes of who the head coach is, and as I said, that we give consideration to the people we have here internally. We always have, but it needs to be a discussion as an organization once the decision is made that what the whole staff will look like.
Yarmo, Brad seemed pretty despondent when he came in last night. I'm just curious when he learned of his fate and how that conversation went.
This morning, he and I had a conversation this morning early, and it's never a pleasant conversation, obviously, and I didn't see his press conference, so I can't speak to that.
Aaron, your goaltending situation, obviously, for any team, it's a huge deal going into any season. You got Elvis signed up for another 4. Just how important is it to fix whatever issues he had this year? He struggled with some inconsistencies, injuries, things like that. And did that factor maybe just getting a new voice type of thing into the decision with Manny?
Well, number one, goaltender is a key to success with any team that wants to be in the playoffs or have success in the playoffs, or let alone win the Stanley Cup. You need a goalie that has the skills, that has the talent, but also a goalie who is consistent, reliable. That means staying healthy, being in top condition, probably the best conditioned guy on the whole team because of the requirements of that job. And that's going to be something that's going to be addressed as soon as we get to these discussions with the players that we've already started.
Yumro, how soon do you need a head coach in place?
I don't think we're going to rush into anything. The sooner the better, obviously. But I think we're going to do a thorough search. I think that's going to take a little bit of time to see what happens around the league, as we've seen some things have already happened, and would maybe broaden our search or candidates. And once we get a full picture of that, then I think we'll try to come to conclusion as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yarmo, it obviously Elvis and Manny Legacy both have a very close relationship. I think they were close before what happened with Matisse Cleveland, but that also kind of made them even closer. Did that make it kind of a tough decision at all, or do you you're gonna have to have a conversation with Elvis, right, about this move and that kind of thing?
We're all professionals here, and I think we all have a job to do. And once you come through the doors to the rink, that's needs to be your focus. And if you have personal relationships outside the business part, then that's up to you, and needs to stay out of the business side of it, which is being a professional athlete and conducting yourself as one. So it's that's all that factored into this decision.
Yarmo, such a young team that you have, do you feel like there's an opportunity to be able to try to get the most out of development? Just how crucial is that aspect going to be when you find your next coach?
It's huge, but we also have great development coaching staff in place, led by Rick Nash and Derek Dorsett's part of it, Jarkko Ruutu in Europe, and Nicholas Backstrom with the goalies, and Brad Thiessen with the Monsters. So we take the development part very seriously. We've always said that we need to be a draft and develop team. That's how we're going to build our core. That's how we're going to find it. But then we need to develop it, nourish it, and get them to the next level. And that part we take very, very seriously. We were the first team to hire a full-time skills coach in Kenny McCudden in the whole NHL for that same reason, so that these guys have access to a person who takes their personal development and into his heart and works with them every day before practice. After practice, you see Kenny McCudden out there. The development doesn't stop when they get to the NHL. That was the reason why we hired Kenny. He needs to continue and be present every day, and Kenny's great at it. We have a ton of respect for him. The players have a ton of respect for him. So the development part's huge, and of course the culture that the head coach sets on that's important too.
When did you come to the conclusion that you needed to fire Brad, and was that then a matter of just writing out the season and letting it finish off?
I don't want to get into any of the timeline of our decisions. We informed them this morning, and decisions made.
Yarmo, have you talked to Elvis specifically about Legacy not being back?
Not yet, but we will. And the players knew before anybody else after the decision was made, and the message delivered to Brad Larsen.
With 47 guys that played a game for your team this year, have there been some guys that have kind of gotten your attention? You got maybe some tougher decisions to make moving forward?
Tough decisions are great. If guys are pushing us to believe that they can be more than maybe even we projected, those are great things. I think some of the young guys on our team have taken the opportunity and taken advantage of it. To mention guys like Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, who didn't start the year with us. Those guys have proved to us that they can be really good players on this level, have great potential to be even much better and be a part of and core of a winning team. You know, we have a lot of young talent here that's going to need its time to get to a level where we can compete for the Stanley Cup, but it's all part of the process, and we're very hands-on with that process, where we want to get those guys to the next level, and that's part of that development process that we talked about earlier.
How disappointed are you in that the Monsters did not make the playoffs? Obviously, injuries had a lot to do with that. And is there anything maybe you want to do forward, you know, in the future to make sure that they're stronger?
Yeah, stay healthy. If we stay healthy here, we don't have to take half of their team here. You know, they were doing great before this started with our team, and you know, they were top of their division, doing great. And then once we took half of their team, and then they have to take half of their team from East Coast League, then the unfortunate thing happened, and you know, most of their guys stayed here all year because of that. And I told Clarkey, Chris Clark, our director of player personnel and the GM in Cleveland, that I'm sorry, you know, we screwed you. And but that's the way it goes when you have injuries in the NHL level. It rolls down to the American League level and so forth, and not much we can do about it now. It's unfortunate.
Just wondering, did your evaluation of the coaching staff, particularly Brad, go right down to the last couple games? And did any of his decisions in those games factor in?
As I said, I don't want to get into the timeline of this decision. We evaluate him every day, so it's not like this is a spur of the moment thing after a last game or anything like that. But you know, this was the right timing in our minds, and that's why we did it this morning.
You mentioned Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko starting July 1. Obviously, they're eligible for an extension. How high is that on your list of priorities heading into the summer?
We have a whole list of priorities that we want to get into, and we've always dealt with the player contracts in a way that when the extension is earned and deserved, we're going to get right at it. They're obviously both you know, restricted free agents, so I've always said it that those negotiations are usually a little bit different than when the guys get close to the UFA years and have that potential to test the market. They can be a little bit more difficult, and we'll get to them in due time, and with respect to what they've done in this league and what they deserve, and I'm sure that they will get done at the right time.
With your coaching position, you went from a really big personality, Tortorella, to a coach who I think commanded respect, but had more of a player's coach type feel to him. Do you have players in that room that need a firmer voice? Is that an imperative in the next coach? More of a maybe closer to the previous than Larsen was?
We need a change. That became clear that we need a change in how we go about our things on a day-to-day basis, and how we're moving forward, the type of hockey we want to play in the future, and what's going to take us to the next level and back into the playoffs and be a competing team for the Stanley Cup.
I guess along those lines, I know it's really early to look at next season right now, but going into this off season, you got the draft, you got free agency and all that, and how are you going to approach this off season when it comes to next season? Do you feel like if you stay healthy, there's talent, obviously talent here, that you guys can have a big rebound next year?
Absolutely. I think once we get everybody healthy, even the guys that are here, we're going to look like a completely different team. But there's going to be some changes too. We're going to look at every position, and we're going to make the necessary changes. We want to get back into the playoffs. We've had enough of being on the outside looking in and watching the playoffs on TV. We were there. We got a taste of it for a few years in a row, and not enough taste of success. We want to get back in there, and the reason why we did this reset, or whatever you want to call it, is to do it the right way, to get to the next level and to be able to compete for the Stanley Cup. And we we need to get there soon, and we need to improve in all areas to get there.
Among the injuries that your team had to go through was the goaltending situation. Can you provide an update on Daniil Tarasov, and is there any concern next year that he might not be ready for a full-time role?
Well, I think the same applies to him. That I said, we think that he has the potential to be a number one goalie in this league. But in order to be a number one goalie, the criteria that I mentioned before is not just to have the talent and the skill to play the position, but you also have to be reliable and consistent, and you have to be in top conditioning in order to do those things. And same applies to all of our goalies. It's a hard job. It's the hardest job on the team, it needs to be approached as one too, and that's something that we're going to address as well.
Remember, they say a GM only gets to fire so many coaches before the pressure turns to them. This is 3 for you since you've been here 10 years. How much pressure does this put now?
How do you count 3?
I'm sorry?
How do you count 3?
Well, Richards to Tortorella.
Tortorella was not fired.
Okay, you've changed coaches 3 times now.
Mutually agreed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Either way, so you've changed coaches 3 times now. How much pressure does this put now on you?
I am willing to take all the pressure that's out there. I take full responsibility on hiring the coaches. I didn't hire Todd Richards. I had a great working relationship with him, and he was a good coach for us. We needed a change at the time we made it. Tortorella was a very successful coach here for a long time. After a while, we mutually agreed that we needed to part ways. And so this is the second firing if I'm counting. And I take full responsibility for hiring all the 2 coaches that I've hired so far, and for the team that's on the ice. That's my responsibility. I own up to that every day in front of the mirror, and I will in the future as well. I'd say in 10 years, if you've gone through 3 coaches, that should be pretty low on the level of change that happens in this league. But I don't really keep statistics of that. I focus on our team and what we need and what's the right thing for our group, and that's why we came to this conclusion at this time.
The way this league is set up with the draft and the draft lottery and all that stuff puts your team sometimes, when you're in the position you guys were in a weird position. Players are never going to try and lose. We know that. But like losing that Pittsburgh game, it prevented you from having the best odds of winning the draft lottery, obviously. Like I said, would be the way to put it. What was the disappointment level? Is there a disappointment level that didn't happen, that you didn't get the 25.5% chance to get Connor Bedard?
Well, there's still a 74.5% chance that you don't get it. So, as you said, players will never tank. Players have professional pride. They go on the ice to win the game, to do their best. Their careers are on the line. Their jobs are on the line. For our team next year, they want to go out and do their best. As you saw with the guys that played some of their first NHL games with us, they're going and giving it their everything to try to give us their best showing on the individual level and as a team. And that's, you let the chips fall and see where we end up. Now we got the second best odds in the lottery, and that guarantees us at least the top 4 pick in the draft. And those things are pretty much out of our control as management. The coaches are coaching the team to win, and players are there to show what they can do to have a great career in the NHL.
Time for a couple more here, and then I'll turn it to Zoom.
You talk about culture, and everybody talks about culture, but to you, what does a good culture look like?
A good culture looks like the standard of work that we do here every day, whether it's on and off the ice with the players, coaching staff, the management. The standard's always here. Everybody has a little bit of bad day here and there, but the standard can never drop to under a certain level, and it stays consistent, and it stays firm. And there are a strong set of values within the organizations that you never compromise. And if you live by those values every day consistently and your judge is in the mirror, then I think you're doing the right things as an individual and as part of the good culture.
go to Zoom. First question will go to Stephen Lino. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thanks, Todd. Yarmo, obviously you mentioned not wanting to rush into this. The draft lottery is May 8th. Is there a possibility that the result of that lottery affects how you make this decision on who's going to be your next coach?
I don't know if that would be the deciding factor. I think if the decision's not made by then, it's something that factors into what kind of team we have here next year, and you know, all those things go into the process of evaluating the next head coach and who it should be and what it should require.
Steve, do you have another one? Go ahead.
No, I'm good, Todd. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go to Elaine Shercliffe. Go ahead, Elaine.
Hi. Knowing that the Jackets prefer having the same system up in Columbus and in Cleveland, does this coaching change affect Cleveland at all, or do you have full confidence that Trent Vogelhuber and the staff down there can assimilate to whatever system the new coach would throw at them?
Absolutely, that's how it's been done for years here. That we have the communication between the coaching staff here and the coaching staff in Cleveland, and we try to play the same way, so that the players that come up from Cleveland to here know the system already, don't need to adapt to what we do up here, and that's been smooth in the recent years, and that's how we plan to continue.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody who joined us on Zoom. So we'll start.